Good morning. Just going to give it another minute or two and we will start. It's getting everybody time to join in. Mm, Ready?
Good morning, everyone. I am so blessed today to have with me someone that I truly admire, and I think that she does the best that we have. I'm going to just note takers are not allowed. She does some of the best training for Alzheimer's and dementia I've ever seen, and I've been doing this for a while. So I'm Felicia Saraceno. I am your coach, your host today. And with us, we have Dr. Catherine Cruikshank. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Felicia, for this opportunity. I'm just going to pull up my program. Is that being shared right now? Can you...
I'm going to take a second. Let's see. Not. We can post just to be on the safe side. Maybe because I'm recording now.
Go with the share screen.
We'll try that. Zoom has been really fun.
There we go.
I'm going to mute and you take it away.
Here it goes.
Okay. Well, today I was asked to talk about the 10 warning signs of dementia combined with if you are working with someone, when you should not sign a contract and when to maybe tap the brakes or seek if there is someone else that is working with the family. Hold on. Let's just do it this way. A little bit about myself. I've been in the field of gerontology for over 30 years. My grandfather had Alzheimer's type dementia, and because of him, I did my master's and doctorate in gerontology, specifically in dementia. I have worked with the Alzheimer's Association. I've been an executive director, and I started my own business, which is Cadence Senior Living Consulting, predominantly education and placement for seniors. So that's a little bit about me. Just my disclaimer, I'm not a licensed attorney, nor am I a licensed medical practitioner. So any information that I share in today's presentation is for educational purposes and consideration only. I know in every state, laws and regulations can be a little bit different, so please take that to heart. So getting right into it and talking about dementia. And today I'm going to predominantly use the term dementia, but for a few examples, we're talking about Alzheimer's. These two words, dementia and Alzheimer's, are often combined or substituted for each other, but there is a difference. And dementia is a general term. It's also a syndrome. It is usually a combination of various symptoms. So you may have heard Down syndrome or chronic fatigue syndrome. There are many facets that go into each of those illnesses. And it's the same with dementia. It's not just one thing that causes dementia. So dementia is a general term. It's an umbrella term. I often compare the word dementia with the word cancer. There are many different types of cancers. There are many different types of dementia. We hear about Alzheimer's disease the most because it represents the most common form of dementia. It's about 60 to 80% of the cases, but as diagnosis is getting better, we're seeing an increase in different dementias come up. It's not that there's more of those other dementias, they're just getting diagnosed better. It's not just a person who, for the sake of example, 75 years old, concerned about their memory, goes to the doctor and they say, oh, you're just getting old. Or, oh, it must be Alzheimer's, because that's the easy out. It's important to get a good diagnosis with if you have a complaint about your memory cognition. But as I continue to talk, I'm going to show that dementia is not just memory. And that's important to recognize, especially if you're working with clients, because in the very early stages, a person's memory can still be pretty intact. And you wouldn't necessarily know the difference if you didn't know the person really well. So we're going to talk about that. As I mentioned, dementia is a general term. It's an umbrella term. And there are many dementias that fall under that umbrella. There's Alzheimer's type, vascular type, dementia with Lewy bodies, frontal temporal, and so on. So just a quick image of the brain. As the brain gets diseased, or as the brain gets sick and starts to progress on its journey of dementia, depending on which area is getting affected, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and so on, a person's going to have different deficits. You may or may not see them, especially in the earlier stages, but the brain is physically changing. And again, depending on which area is changing, you're going to have deficits. So a lot of people with Parkinson's or Lewy body are going to have issues in the back area of the brain. Typically, Alzheimer's type dementia will start in the temporal lobe, and there'll be a lot of hand-holding with the frontal lobe. So if you see what's listed under these areas, object recognition, receptive language, productive language, those are two different things. Receptive language is, can the person comprehend you? It's very different than can they hear you. Most people with dementia, if they get their hearing tested and they don't already have a history of hearing deficits, they can hear you perfectly fine. Their brain just can't recognize the words or noises it is hearing. Over here, productive language is the ability to speak. A person can still speak, but they may have tip of the tongue issues, or they may use slightly unorthodox words, inappropriate words, substitutions. For example, have you seen my windows? I'm looking for my glasses. I'm going to the grocery store. Have you seen my suitcase, purse, or wallet? Not quite the right words to substitute, but they're in the ballpark. And I point out receptive language and productive language because if you are going to meet with a person for the first time, or maybe you've had a couple of brief conversations with them, but now you're meeting them face to face for the first time, those are two important things to recognize. Also, reasoning, problem solving, planning, especially in the earlier stages, these are things that can be affected in a person. It's not always memory. And since you don't necessarily know the person you're talking to, you're not going to know if they're confabulating, meaning filling in the blanks or telling you something you may or may not want to hear, but it sounds good at the time, versus what is real. So this slide and the next slide I like to show because dementia is not just a cognitive memory issue. It's also a physical illness. So as a person progresses in their journey, now this is an image of an Alzheimer's brain, but if it were a brain with a different dementia, you're still going to see atrophy. And you can see the normal brain is plump and juicy and looks pretty good and intact. And the Alzheimer's brain has atrophied about a third of the size smaller. So there's a lot of physical change going on in a person who's exhibiting dementia. It's also why in the earlier stages, it's very good to get some imaging done. PET scan, MRI, sort of depends on the doctor and what they're looking for or what they presume you're experiencing. I always think of getting a baseline MRI or PET scan in the same vein as getting a baseline mammogram. Everything can look right, but a year or so later, you could see changes. So these two images are from the same two brains we just saw. When they study a brain, they take it out, they weigh it, they measure it, they poke it with a stick. No, they don't do that. But they do slice it like a loaf of bread, and then they study each slice of that brain. So again, you can see with these slices that the person up top who was considered normal, pretty intact, and the very advanced Alzheimer's brain is completely atrophied. I want to emphasize that this is a very late stage Alzheimer's brain. This person had probable Alzheimer's for well over 10 years, and when he passed away, his family donated his brain to science. And that is important to know that this is an advanced brain. A very early stage dementia brain can still look like this, but the person's function isn't affected. For the record, these two brains come from 82-year-old males. And you can see over here, there's a little dent. Over here, it's nice and round. Over here, there's a little ding. Here, it's nice and full, and there's another little ding over here. This fellow had no self-reports or observational reports by family or doctor of any kind of cognitive decline. His brain is what's considered normal. Now, if he were reporting some deficits, some issues, and his family were reporting issues, then these two dings would be problematic. But he had what was called normal age-related brain atrophy. So you may know that as we age, even with good diet and exercise, we lose a little bone density or muscle mass. As we age, we lose a little bit of brain mass, but it should not affect our function. This fellow, completely affected and very dependent for his care. So let's talk about a few typical age-related things. And it's important if you're looking at someone you know what's normal for them. You know if they have word issues, and we're going to talk about that a bit more. You know if they are forgetful, if they have, and this is one of my pet peeves, ADD. Yes, that's a real thing. But when people laugh off forgetfulness, especially in later age, we don't want to laugh it off. Is it a serious thing? So we all make a bad decision once in a while. You know, some of us more than others. You may have been traveling and missed a monthly payment. Now with seniors, this is a real thing. A lot of younger people do the auto pay, or they get their statements via email. So even if they're on vacation or traveling for work, they're going to get that statement. A lot of seniors still like the paper statements, so they may forget about them. Forgetting which day it is and remembering later. For the record, today is Monday. But if someone said it was Tuesday, that's not going to catch my attention too much, because it's common enough that we're off by a day, especially if you had a big meeting on Tuesday or you have a lot of things going on Tuesday. Your brain may be focused on that. Most people, being Monday, if they said it was Tuesday, are going to self-correct after a few seconds, or maybe a minute later, they'll go, oh, wait, I said it was Tuesday. No, it's actually Monday. My bad. They'll self-correct. Forgetting which word to use, common with all of us. We all have tip of the tongue issues every now and then. It could be a person's name. It could be the name of an object, a movie, a restaurant. Happens to us all the time. Some people more than others. And what's relevant with that one is if you know a person really well, a family member or friend, and you know their regular speech pattern, are they having tip of the tongue issues more often? That's a big deal. Misplacing things from time to time. Some people, again, more than others. Some people are very organized. Some people have been misplacing their car keys and sunglasses for the past 50 years. That is nothing new. But the difference is when you start finding them in stranger places. So if a person usually puts their sunglasses down next to their purse, but they walked in the house and their sunglasses happened to be on their head when they walked in, so they put their purse down. Maybe they went into the bathroom really fast. They needed to go. And while they were there, they put their glasses on the counter. For a normal
Hey,
health
good morning.
we can usually retrace our steps, and that's not an issue. For someone experiencing memory issues, they're going to have a harder time retracing their steps. So those are some things that commonly happen, not terribly unusual, but if they start happening more and more, that's a big issue. So before we get into all the warning signs, I'm going to break down dementia into 3 categories. There's cognition, there's behavior, and there's function. So cognition, is a person able to learn and comprehend new information? For behaviors, are they having mood swings? Are they being more impulsive? Are they as alert as they should be? And or are they hyper-focused in ways that they weren't before? And then function. ADL stands for activity of daily living. Are they able to get dressed? Are they groomed? Are they presentable? Is their body odor? And with that, is their house clean, tidy, cluttered? Also with function, their motor skills and mobility. Are they furniture walking? Meaning if you're following them around their house, is their hand just kind of grazing the wall or the back of a couch or a tabletop? They may not be holding on to it. They're just kind of grazing it with their fingertips for balance. So those are 3 areas that are important to consider when you're with someone and you're observing them. So some of the signs and symptoms. Memory changes that disrupt daily life. Well, you don't know what the person's daily life is like, and so that would be a little hard to gauge. But did they remember your appointment, that you were coming to their house? If their house isn't tidy, some of this you've got to use a gut feeling on. For others, you may know the person and know what's normal for them. But is the house presentable? Especially if you're in a real estate and someone is presenting their home to you, I would like to think, although I've been educated and I know I could be wrong, the house is going to be fairly tidy. So is there clutter? Is it dirty? And there, as you know, there's a difference between being messy and being dirty. Even if the house is really dirty, I would say if the person offers you something to drink, coffee, tea, water, accept it. Doesn't mean you have to drink from that cup or drink the beverage if you're a little nervous about it. But yes, you want to accept it and watch them make it. A person should be fairly comfortable operating a kettle, a coffee maker, opening the fridge to get something out. So are they pausing to the steps that are involved with getting a glass of water? Are they looking in multiple cabinets to see where the glasses are? So I do encourage you to watch them prepare this. Again, you don't have to drink from the cup. I have been to many houses where I did not want to drink from the cup. A little concerned about hygiene. Are they confused with time or place? Did they forget you were coming? Again, if someone's coming to your house, especially for a serious meeting like listing, that's something you're going to remember. So are they off? I'm in Naples, Florida right now, but we have a lot of people who moved here from Michigan and New Jersey and New York. Are they talking about New Jersey, New York, or Michigan as if they're still living there? Are they aware of what city they're in? And then, as I said, with the furniture walking, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. Do they get nervous when they're going from a tile floor to a carpet floor? Or if there's an area rug, do they lift their foot to step over the seam between the two different floorings? And that's an indication that they do have depth perception issues and are nervous walking. So you may not know if they're having new problems with speaking or writing. However, you can keep talking to them. And again, is the person stammering? Are they having troubles getting words out? They may have a good fluency, but are they pausing for words? Are they struggling to find the right word? I mentioned this earlier. Another thing you can do is if you are asking them, even if you have their address and phone number, present them with a notepad and ask them to write it down. Hey, I just want to double check your phone number, your email, your address. Could you just scribble it down? I want to compare it with my notes, because handwriting is almost like a fingerprint. It is unique to the person. Are they able to write easily? This is something we often look at when diagnosing and or studying a person with dementia. Is their handwriting unusually large or unusually small? Is it getting shaky? Even if they're writing on lined paper, often a person who's progressing with dementia will cross the line. And it doesn't matter if they're right-handed or left-handed. They'll usually start in the upper left area, and as they're writing, it goes down. It will probably cross the line on the paper and be below the line when they're finished writing or signing their name. So looking at things like that will give you an indication on if the person's experiencing cognitive issues or not. We talked about misplacing things and not being able to retrace steps. Decreased or poor judgment. Now this can be hard to assess, because if a person's listing their house, they may be very agitated. It can be overwhelming. It can be very nerve-wracking for some people. Some people have bought and sold a dozen homes in their lifetime and think nothing of it. Other people, they may have lived in this house for the past 50 years. And so the idea of listing could be very overwhelming for them. However, let's circle back to the client who has bought and sold a handful of houses or a dozen houses over their lifetime. Are they still anxious? Were they speaking to you previously in a very confident manner, and now they're getting anxious, nervous, stammering, getting hesitant, anything like that? Change in behavior. While you're chit-chatting with them, ask them about any volunteer work they may do, what did they do for fun? Do they play pickleball? Do they play golf? And listen to their answers. Oh, I used to play golf, or I love playing golf, and then get into it. How often do you play? They may or not play more than once a month versus 4 times a week when they were younger. Are they pulling back from activities? Some people do, many people do, because social interaction can be overwhelming. They don't want people to know that they have a memory issue. While I'm talking about that, most people do know they have a memory issue. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst or most progressed, they may think they're just a 1, maybe a 2. Senior moments. I'm getting older. I do not like senior moments. I do not like that phrase. I'm just using it for an example. Verse Whereas family or friends who know them well will say, well, it's more like a 4 or 5. So circling back, most people do know that they have an issue. They just may not be aware of how bad their issue is. So is there evidence that they pulled back from activities, recently retired, having issues driving? If you're in the driveway before going into the house, have a quick look at the car. Pretend you're admiring it. Look for dings, scratches, dents, more than one. Or if you're in the garage, do the same thing. Great car. Oh, wow. Have a walk around. See if there are dings, dents, scratches, things, you know, a person may have a ding or a scratch here and there, shouldn't have several. And that's an indication that they're having problems driving, their depth perception is off. And getting into our final one, changes in mood and personality. Are they having unusual mood swings while you're talking to them as they get overwhelmed? Are they really getting difficult? Is their response abnormally, enthusiastically annoyed, angry, happy, passive? Are they shutting down or being more confrontational? Things that are unusual for anyone. And you've been, I'm assuming many of you have been in the field for a long time, so you know what is somewhat normal behavior and stress levels for someone who's listing their house. So let me just go back one slide. So I do want to emphasize a person who is exhibiting memory problems, if it's very early stage, is not incompetent. They are not declared incapacitated right away. So it is important for you to understand that a person can look normal and sound normal well into their illness. If you have a gut feeling that someone is having serious medical issues, memory issues, and you're not comfortable, include in the conversation, hey, are your kids around? How many grandchildren do you have? Usually it's easier to start with talking about grandchildren and then work up to the adult kids, their children, because sometimes there can be family conflicts and you want to make sure there's a good relationship. But most grandparents are pretty psyched about their grandchildren. So to talk about family, do you see them? How's everything going? Oh, this one does this one does that. It may seem like a little thing, even a waste of time, but it's very important to understand family dynamics. A question that you're probably asking every client is, why are you selling your home? Most people, if you ask them, will say, I want to stay in my home until I pass away. I want to die in my own bed. That is the standard answer for everyone. No one wants to leave their home. So if you have someone 65, 75, 85, or older talking about downsizing to independent living or assisted living, they're probably not going to mention memory care. Ask them about that. If you can relate, if you've had family who have been through similar issues, bring that into the conversation, bond. But ask them why they're moving. They may say, well, I'm having some memory issues. They may be very forthcoming. Oh, okay, great. Have you started working with your kids or your best friend or your sibling? Who's your power of attorney? And you can even bring in a conversation starter like, oh, I've been meaning to do my power of attorney. Which estate attorney did you use? Did you like them? Were they reasonable? Bring that into the conversation, but ask them if they have a power of attorney assigned, and are they working with that child, spouse, sibling, whoever is assigned, with the sale of their house? They may not answer that question. They may throw up a wall and block you, but put out the feelers to see how they feel about that. Because for a person with dementia, if they get sick, something as simple as a cold, flu, or urinary tract infection, that can progress their dementia significantly. If they have a fall or break something, that can also be a catalyst with their illness. So it is good to try and find out who a power of attorney is for them, who would be co-signing on their home if needed. Because the big question is, does the person have the self-authority to sign or not? And that's also where it's important to know, are they close with their family or not? Because a person with dementia, even moderate dementia, can look and sound normal, but they're not necessarily in a good state of mind and shouldn't necessarily be signing documents, especially complicated real estate documents. So I thank you for your time today. I am available for questions. If you'd like to call or email me with offline questions, I'm always available. So don't be shy. And I thank you for your time today. Felicia?
Sorry, just had to unmute. This was awesome. Thank you so much. You can unshare so we could just take a quick gather together. I love when you give all of this top line, really in-depth information for folks so that they can have a better understanding for Alzheimer's and dementia. It's so important that people do understand you don't have to be old to have a power of attorney. I always say
18 years of age and older.
Have a driver's license. Where's your advanced directives? Because it can happen to anyone. So it's something that it should be asked for everyone, especially in real estate. We always tell people the easiest way to help people understand this and to partner with an elder law attorney is asking all of your clients one simple question. And it's post-closing, are you going to update your will? Because now you're selling this asset or you're buying an asset and it needs to get updated, right? They have kids, maybe they just got married, and then they're going to say, oh, we just got married. We didn't think about that. We need to get one now before we have kids. Yeah, you're buying $500,000 million asset, right? Got to go somewhere so it doesn't go to probate. So we do talk about that, and that's the easiest way to create that bond with someone. On the flip side, the tips that you gave are super important. We talk about them all the time for selling the house and knowing that it's important that if this is another one that just came up for me last week, eyesight's now diminished, and she's like, well, I can just X. Just point to me where I can X. She's not reading any documents, Catherine.
And that's a problem. It seems lovely that the person trusts the person, but if they can't sign or sign well, it's a problem.
So that's when I said, it's time to, her niece is this particular seller, her niece is her power of attorney. I was like, it's time to loop in your niece because I'm not comfortable with me just explaining everything to you and you signing it. I think you should have someone to bounce this off of. Not me in a room having her sign everything. So there's all these little things that add up to us having our ethics and our best practices always first and foremost forward for our clients. So thank you so much for helping us shape that for everyone. Y'all have her information. Reach out to her. She's very responsive. We'll have her on again for a live call. But we all hope you enjoyed this and have a fabulous day.
Mm, 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 mm.